Tariffs against China add up to 145%. That is including the existing 20% tariffs that were already imposed on the country.
Work with the manufacturers identified in the online videos, and we urge consumers to be aware of potentially counterfeit products and misinformation. Authentic Lululemon products are only available for purchase at our Lululemon store.
Hermès didn't just tell a lie, they built an empire on it. For years, the world believed the Birkin bag was the crown jewel of fashion. Handcrafted in France, stitched with decades of artisan mastery and drenched in exclusivity. But that fantasy? It just got torched, because behind the scenes, something was rotting. And it wasn't just overpriced leather. Lou Doyon, daughter of the legendary Jane Birkin, has flipped the entire fashion industry on its head. She's not just suing Hermès, she's calling out decades of silent exploitation, brand manipulation, and straight-up fraud. And to make things worse, a viral TikTok exposed what Hermès never wanted you to see. Their French-made bags were actually being crafted in Chinese factories for a fraction of the price. The world's most exclusive handbag? It may have just become the world's most overpriced scam. This isn't some petty celebrity drama. This is a full-blown reckoning. Legal teams are mobilizing. Influencers are ditching their Birkins. And a billion-dollar house of luxury is burning under the weight of its own lies. So the real question is, if the Birkin bag was fake all along, what else are they hiding? Let's break it all down.
The company has long maintained its products are made only in Europe and the United States, as it currently states on its website.
Recognize this style, this bag? Of course you do. For the past more than 30 years, we have been the OEM factory for most of the luxury brands around the world. Gucci, Prada, Coach, Louis.
For decades, the Hermès Birkin wasn't just a handbag. It was a statement, a status symbol, a ticket to the upper crust. Behind velvet ropes and hushed boutiques, the Birkin thrived on one story. Every stitch whispered French luxury, and every purchase proved your place in the elite. But that story just fell apart. And not because of some corporate leak, but because Jane Birkin's daughter, Lou Doyon, had enough. She didn't file a polite trademark request or send a press release. She went straight for the jugular, demanding Hermès stop all Birkin production or face her in court. No more playing nice. No more hiding behind legacy. Suddenly, the fairy tale crumbled. Lou called out the brand for hijacking her mother's name, selling it like a fashion trophy, while Jane never saw a single royalty check. Not one dime. And as Lou's legal team moved in, Hermès went into lockdown. Stitching halted mid-production. Boardrooms froze, panic set in. The name they'd built an empire on, it was finally being taken back. And that glossy image of tradition and timelessness, just the first domino to fall. But what really sparked the collapse wasn't in a courtroom. It started with a TikTok that shattered the illusion worldwide.
Price $23,000, but Guangzhou price $600.
Today's show about luxury bags carefully handcrafted in China. Turns out your quote-unquote made in Italy luxury handbag might have more ties to Chinese factories than to Tuscany. Thanks to viral TikToks from Chinese factory workers, the internet is now in a frenzy.
While lawyers were still drafting motions and Hermès tried to keep things quiet, the internet blew the doors wide open. It all started with a calm, soft-spoken Chinese factory worker and a phone camera. In just a few minutes, he dismantled decades of Hermès branding with cold, hard facts. The Birkin bag, he broke it down piece by piece. Italian leather, $450. High-end thread, $25. Stainless steel hardware, $150. Labor, a shocking $10. Total cost to make a genuine Birkin, around $1,400. Not a knockoff, not a replica, the real thing. Identical materials, identical stitching, just not made in France. The TikTok exploded. Millions of views, thousands of shares. Experts chimed in to confirm what fashion elites had always suspected but never dared to say aloud. Hermès wasn't being honest. This wasn't craftsmanship. It was a markup circus dressed in luxury language. And the worst part? That Made in France label suddenly looked like a joke. For Hermès, this was more than bad PR. It was a nightmare in real time, because no influencer or glossy campaign could spin this kind of truth. But the video was just the spark. What came next would shake Hermès at its very foundation. Hermès built its entire identity on a single phrase, handmade in France. It wasn't just a tagline, it was their holy grail. The idea that every Birkin bag was meticulously stitched by a master artisan in a sunlit Parisian workshop gave the brand its power. But once that TikTok dropped, the illusion shattered. Because the truth? Those polished ateliers weren't the only places Hermès bags were born. Quietly, secretly, Production had been outsourced to factories in China, while customers paid $40,000 thinking they were buying French tradition. Insiders started leaking messages. Real French artisans came forward. Some admitted they hadn't touched certain bag styles in years. Others threatened to live stream the entire assembly process happening in Asia. Proof that the fantasy was fake. Hermès tried to do damage control, insisting their quality control remained consistent, but it was too late. The trust was broken. Even worse, the exact same bags, same leather, same thread, same hardware were being made overseas and sold for a fraction of the price. Suddenly, made in France didn't mean artistry, it meant marketing. And just when Hermès thought it couldn't get worse, Lou Doyon stepped up and dropped a legal bomb that would flip the story completely.
At Hermes boutique will cost you 38,000 USD. But what is the real cost out of the factory? Today, I'm going to break it down in front of you, step by step. First thing first, Hermes only use the leathers from the 3 top-level suppliers. One is called Nuti from Italy. The second is Weinheim from Germany, and the third is Haas from France. One piece of Togo leather, the same leather as this one, will cost 450 USD.
Lou Doyon didn't ask politely. She didn't send a letter or pose for a PR-friendly sit-down. She went straight for the jugular. With the full force of her legal team, she demanded Hermès stop producing the Birkin bag. Immediately. Not later. Not after a review. Now, and if they refused? Courtroom war. This wasn't just about money. This was about legacy. Her mother's legacy. Jane Birkin, the icon whose name became fashion gold, never saw a single royalty from the bag that made Hermès billions. She didn't license it. She didn't approve the endless marketing campaigns. Her name was taken, sold, and turned into a luxury logo while she watched from the sidelines. Lou had seen enough. She labeled the entire brand strategy heritage fraud. She wasn't just reclaiming a name, she was exposing how Hermès built its empire off someone else's story and never said thank you. She pushed for an asset freeze, a full-blown audit of every offshore factory. And she wasn't bluffing. She came in with receipts. The moment was seismic. A daughter reclaiming her mother's stolen glory. And while Hermès scrambled to preserve its image, the world started paying attention. Because the next blow, it wouldn't come from lawyers. It would come from the entire luxury industry itself. The fallout wasn't contained to Hermès. It hit the entire luxury industry like a shockwave. Stylists, once obsessed with the Birkin, started pulling the plug. Group chats lit up. Don't be seen with the bag. Suddenly, fashion's most exclusive symbol turned radioactive. Celebrities who built entire aesthetics around that orange box, Kim Kardashian, Cardi B, Drake, began switching it up. Birkin who? Now it was all about Loewe, Goyard, anything but Hermès. And the resale market? Panic. Resellers flooded platforms with Birkins, slashing prices like it was Black Friday. Influencers who once bragged about their waitlist now posted vague apologies and decluttering stories. Hermès didn't just lose status. They lost control of the narrative. Meanwhile, rival brands were quick to pounce. Price hikes, aggressive campaigns, and whispers of "we're not like them" filled the industry. For Hermès, the silence was deafening. The exclusivity they weaponized for decades had turned into isolation. The brand that once played gatekeeper now found itself locked out. But this wasn't just social backlash. It was a cultural shift. For the first time, people were questioning what luxury really meant. And just as the fashion world started to turn its back, the legal system stepped in with a vengeance.
And one piece of the leather is only enough to make one Birkin, okay? And next, thread. And of course, for Hermes Birkin, the thread is also the best top level. It's called Fil al Chinois from France. This is actually the Rolls Royce.
Just when Hermès thought it could survive the backlash, the legal avalanche began. And it didn't stop. First came the revived U.S. antitrust case, one Hermès hoped had died quietly. This time it came back sharper, louder, and fueled by a growing wave of consumer fury. Plaintiffs accused the brand of a rigged system, where customers weren't just buying bags, they were being played. The deal? Spend thousands on belts, scarves, and other items first, and maybe, just maybe, you'd earn the right to purchase a Birkin. It wasn't a rare exception. It was a secret sales policy. Sales associates allegedly pushed these tactics behind closed doors, creating artificial scarcity to inflate demand and manipulate status. Customers weren't chosen, they were hustled. And now, they wanted their money back, armed with lawyers ready to drag Hermès through every courtroom possible. But that was just the beginning. Around the world, more lawsuits followed. Accusations of deceptive marketing, unethical sourcing, consumer fraud, internal documents began leaking. Whistleblowers stepped forward, and suddenly Hermès wasn't just facing a scandal. It was facing a collapse. And while the lawsuits piled up, trouble was brewing inside the company. Because behind those polished doors, Hermès was falling apart from within.
In threat. For each bag, the cost is 25 USD. And then the hardware. See, this hardware is called 316 hardware. It's also known as the ocean stainless steel because it can withstand the erosion of seawater. It's the best stainless steel. For one piece of bag, the hardware will cost 150 USD.
Behind Hermès's polished storefronts and velvet ropes, the real panic had already set in. The lawsuits weren't just bad headlines, they were draining the company from the inside. Suppliers, once loyal and discreet, started demanding full upfront payments. No more trust, no more credit, just cold cash. That's not how a billion-dollar brand operates. That's how a brand teeters on the edge. Then came the bombshell. Hermès CEO Nicolas Puech got hit with his own billion-dollar lawsuit. A collapsed share transfer deal sent shockwaves through the board. Investors panicked. Analysts started whispering the one-word luxury brands fear more than any other: bankruptcy. Not gossip, not speculation, a real possibility. And the chaos didn't stop at the top. Inside the French ateliers, the artisans, the very faces of Hermès's handcrafted image, started pushing back. They demanded profit sharing, transparency. Some even threatened to go public and live stream the full bag-making process, showing just how little "Made in France" really meant. One even threatened to expose every offshore production video unless things changed. That's not a revolt, that's an uprising. With executives lawyering up, stylists turning away, and workers threatening rebellion, Hermès was out of options. And the myth? It was collapsing, fast. For decades, Hermès thrived on scarcity. Scarce bags, scarce access, scarce information. That's what made the Birkin feel untouchable. Like owning one meant you'd arrived. But the second Le Doyon demanded accountability, and the internet pulled back the curtain, that scarcity turned into silence. Bags weren't selling out, they were collecting dust. Waitlists weren't elite, they were empty. And the myth? It collapsed in plain sight. What made the Birkin special wasn't just the craftsmanship, it was the story. The illusion that you were buying tradition, legacy, and artistry stitched into every seam. But now, that story looks like a smokescreen. The TikToks exposed the numbers. The lawsuits exposed the practices. And the influencers, once proud flag bearers, abandoned ship the second the glow faded. Inside Hermès headquarters, paranoia took hold. Sample rooms were locked down. Security guards posted at doors to prevent leaks. Stylists issued quiet memos. No more Birkins. Resale platforms imploded. Even the most loyal fans stopped defending them. What's left is the shell of a brand built on borrowed prestige and stitched together lies. And here's the real question. If the Birkin was nothing but a carefully packaged illusion, how many other luxury giants are running the same con? Hermès didn't just overstep. They detonated their own legacy. They took a name that wasn't theirs, spun it into a billion-dollar lie, and hid behind silk scarves and showroom smiles while the truth sat buried in factories overseas. But Le Doyon, she lit the match. The lawsuits, the TikToks, the exposed receipts, they didn't just reveal a scandal. They tore down a cult, because that's what the Birkin had become. A luxury cult built on gatekeeping, secrecy, and status. And when the truth cracked through, the empire didn't just shake, it crumbled. Now the orange box doesn't symbolize class, it screams controversy. The waitlists are gone. The illusion is dead. And luxury? It just lost one of its most iconic faces. So here's the question. If Hermès fooled the world for this long, who else is bluffing? How many other heritage brands are selling fantasies stitched together in silence? Let this be a wake-up call. Not every logo tells the truth. And sometimes the most expensive thing you can buy is the lie. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and share this with someone who still thinks a handbag makes them elite. We're just getting started. See you in the next one.